welcome back to the Exorcist, Bestiary. Welcome back to the Exorcist Bestiary. I'm your host, Amity, and this is the calming episode. I decided we're all going to be calm this episode.
I think she's broken.
I think you should have all seen the last 4 minutes before this moment. We'll put it at the end, maybe.
Yeah, Jamin cut out a tangent that I went on about that he doesn't let me cyberbully people in our comment section. And so I'm taking that note. I'm taking that note, and we're being calm for this episode. So welcome back, besties. And today we're talking about...
I've never had to adjust the volume upwards like this before.
Oh,
Go
really?
on. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Should I yell?
No, you're good.
Today we're talking about freedom. Freedom!
There she is.
Found it.
I did before we started recording. I asked for clarity, and I said, "What do you mean by freedom?" And Jamin did not answer the question at all. So I actually don't know what the topic is. So I guess Jamin, take it away.
Freedom.
You're the only one who has information on this because you left us out of the loop.
No, Tasha knows you weren't here when
What?
we talked about
Talking
it.
about pornography.
Well,
What?
that will come up along the way, at least.
Okay.
Maybe we can cut that part.
No, we'll just leave
Freedom.
that in. That's fine.
Okay. Someone else talk. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Let me start here.
Episode.
I've had a few people that I have worked with where I have them go to the Holy Spirit. And we started asking questions like we do in our model. The Holy Spirit has said the same thing to like 3 different people who are all happen to be dealing with pornography. But the thing that he pretty much said to them is, you're already free. And I don't think this is applicable only to pornography. Having been there myself, I will say that when I heard the Holy Spirit tell all 3 of these people the same thing, I can tell you that someone who's stuck on pornography does not feel free at all, and that it's almost insulting to feel like the Holy Spirit has said, you're already free of that. You're like, excuse me? I've been trying to get out of this for a long time, and I've tried a lot of different avenues. But I think this is something that the Holy Spirit would say to a lot of the issues that we're dealing with. Now, I do recognize, like, if we're talking about like drugs or something, like our minds are scientifically changing around the drugs we're doing, and addiction is very real. But when you run into some issues, I think sometimes we're stuck there because we've been told that we can't get out. And that becomes the lie that we become so focused on because the repetition has happened so much, or the situation has happened so many times, that we believe, truthfully, we can't get out. Even when your mind has been shifted by drugs, like eventually that becomes the truth again, right? Is I cannot get out of this. I've tried everything, and I'm stuck here. But we also have plenty of stories of people who have put in the hard work and have gotten free and found out that they, not that it wasn't hard, but that it wasn't true that they couldn't get out. They had to put in a lot of work to get there. So that's part of what I wanted to talk about today, is when we bump into this lie that we can't get anywhere, and the Holy Spirit bumps up against us and says, you're already free. Like, what do we do with that? Because it feels almost dismissive. And yet at the same time, I've seen the people that have believed in this after inner healing, like, hey, I found a way out because I found out I was free. I didn't have to go back to this. And then they discover sometimes along the way too, like there was almost this compulsion back into this like a drug, because a demon was more or less just like sitting on that part of them, forcing them back to it over and over again, and then them feeling so shameful and miserable that they just believe that this is all they are and all they can do, and they want out real bad, but they don't believe that they can be. So whether it's porn or something else, we do have lots of passages that tell us we're free already, right? Whom the Son sets free is free indeed. But I was doing this interesting inner healing with someone recently where freedom almost seemed like it had become an idol of sorts. It was the thing that they were always after, always wanted. And when I had them go to meet Jesus in their imagination, it was the thing Jesus wanted them to give up so he could get rid of it.
Oh.
Because freedom was not this heavy thing that they were dragging around trying to get. Like they couldn't even pick up their freedom. It was something that Jesus was like, you need to give me whatever you think freedom is, because I have to get rid of that so you can live in actual freedom. And then Jesus picked it up off the ground like it was Thor's hammer, like just didn't weigh anything at all. And then he just tossed it away. And then the person finally felt free.
Like their invented concept of freedom versus what actual freedom is?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they had to be willing to give up this idea that like they could never be free, or that they had to like, in some way that this was theirs to hold in the wrong way. It feels like one of those like analogies that's just so deep that maybe it makes sense when you're there. Because I can feel it. I can feel this interpretation on the tip of my tongue, and at the same time, I can't find the words for it, But like while we were doing this deliverance, they found themselves like in a cage that they recognized went from like dream when they were younger. But now that they were older and they had done a lot of inner healing work, Jesus like showed them, hey, the door's open. I have the keys over here, And so they just walked out of it. And when they turned back to it, they realized like the cage was too small. And Jesus was like, yeah, you don't fit in it anymore. So like, I've got the keys.
Wow.
You're already free. You don't have to go back into that space that the demon told you had to stay in that cage. You're aware that you don't, and now you need to give me this concept of what you think freedom is, because you're already free. You have been the whole time. And then you realize, like, wait, my abusive demon has been telling me I can't have it, but Jesus is already out there with the keys to this cage, wants my freedom and wants to toss away what I think of it and just show me that I'm already there. And like Jesus ended the whole experience with bringing the Bible verse to their mind, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And so then they realized, like, all right, now I have to choose, just as in our last episode, I have to choose to live into the truth. Freedom is also a person. I have to choose to live into the freedom of who Jesus is and define myself by what he thinks. And that might be a long road to get there. I'm not trying to belittle people who are dealing with addiction, be it pornography or many of the other ones, drugs and all that. But recognizing that there is space to choose Jesus as our true north when it comes to like what we believe we can and can't achieve, that changes how we think we can get there, or if we think we can get there at all. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Can you guys recall any times where maybe you were more free than you thought you were?
I remember struggling with this persistent thought that somebody hated me. Or more specifically, I suppose, that they didn't love me. And it was someone who should. And instead of God saying, well, look at this and look at that and look at this and look at that, and kind of like reasoning myself into it, God's just like, nope, they love you. And I was like, okay, and it was just like, it was one of those, okay. And then throughout the week, I'd be like, well, this proves that they don't love you, but God doesn't lie. So what do I do with that? And so then I would start to examine it. And I'd be like, oh, well, maybe they're dealing with this, or maybe they're dealing with that, and that's what's going on. And maybe I'm taking this the wrong way, or maybe I'm not looking at this right, or maybe I'm simply lied to. And it happened so much more than I thought. And it was like so many lies were being thrown at me throughout the week. But when I had that permission of, God said they do love me, it was a solution that I then had to find. It was the answer that then I had to, I don't know how to say that.
You now had the answer to the math question, but you had to solve the algebra.
Yes.
To get there.
There you go. But once you had the answer, it made it a lot more easy to walk through that equation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think even if I look back to my own journey when I was trying to get free of pornography, I do realize as I've watched other people be told that you're already free, that actually was, I think, part of my way of getting out of it. Is I just remember God being very clear. Anything you would tell other people, you're not believing it yourself, and you need to start believing it for yourself. Because you would go up to other people and tell them the Holy Spirit can help them overcome anything. Why don't you say that to yourself? And once I believed that, he's like, all right, here's the freedom. Like, it's been there for you, and I'm helping you find it. So whether it's specifically on porn, and I brought that one up because that has actually been the thing that Jesus has brought up to several people who I realized, like, they're all just feeling so full of shame, like their spirits are broken. And so they need to find a redefinition to realize actually the cage is open and life can be different on the other side. So, yeah. I think to Tasha's point and to my point, like, there are moments where God is going to be straight to you about what's going on, and you're going to feel abrasive about it because you're just like, it cannot be that simple.
Yeah.
They can't love me.
Yeah.
I can't just be free. There's no way. And you then have a choice in those moments. Either you listen to what you're being told because Jesus is not lying to you, or you go back and you say, I'm going to keep listening to these other things and let those lead the way forward. Which, how much good has that done for you so far? Not a whole lot, right? And it's not like, I don't even know that I would say that it's as simple as I'm saying. Like, you do sometimes need to remove those demons because it takes away all of the extra pressure that's being put on you in the midst of addiction. So there is that too. And sometimes, I don't know, occasionally that might revolve around drugs. I had one person in my church once come up to me like, look, I used to be hooked on all kinds of things, and I just remember there was a day where I finally gave my life, like, really, Jesus, like, I gotta stop this or it's gonna destroy me. And then I never did another drug after that day. And I'm like, well, that's not how science works.
Yeah, what?
But apparently that's how God
crazy.
works.
So I'm like, either God healed you of the scientific addiction and a demonic addiction at the same time, or you were already free and you didn't know it, or it was just a demon, or it was just science. Like, again, we're back to the conversation of I don't know what is what. I do know that whatever I'm facing, I need to put in the hard work to overcome it, right? And even within pornography, it's often said that, like, those lanes in your brain are, like, mowed down so the thoughts fly much quicker and all these things that get people hooked even faster with more use of it, things like that. So, like, we can still kind of say, like, the brain is shifting and changing around addictions like sexuality and things like that. But whatever the case is, we know that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, and that he's looking to develop self-discipline, that we are being formed to Jesus right now. And so sometimes if the truth is as blatantly and insultingly simple as you're already free. Like that, those are things to start like saying, okay, all right, I'm going to walk into that. And there are going to be extra elements along the way. There may be demons to remove that will make you feel that freedom more. There may be things of false freedom that need to be tossed out so that you can really experience it. Those things you have to learn along the way, but start with Jesus as your main direction first. So I'm going to let Amity now back us up and correct all the spaces where I've made it too insultingly simple.
Is that my job?
Yeah. You're the. Now let's stop for a minute and make sure that we're hearing this correctly, kind of person.
Sorry that I'm covering.
It's good.
Your butt.
I do want it. I do want it on this one because, like, I'm doing my best to like take these moments of you're already free, but I also understand it's not that simple because I have been there.
Yeah,
so
and I think
get
that's the biggest thing that could potentially be the hang up is we've been talking about a lot of stories of like very like miracle moments, like the person who had been addicted to drugs and then decided to stop cold turkey and never did a drug again. That is a miracle.
And
because
they didn't even have the. If I understand right, they didn't even have the
withdrawals.
Withdrawal?
I think I just stopped.
Drug withdrawal can kill you. That is a miracle.
Yes.
That is not the thing that happens in every case. And so I think that the thing that I would say is the danger of I don't want it to get misconstrued or to be dealt with insensitively is to recognize that you are already free and to be told that you are already free does not mean that all of a sudden freedom becomes something that is easily adopted. Like it is to be told like you're already free and you have the power to be free from this because Jesus has freed you from this. You have the power to walk out of the cage because the door has been opened and it's been open for some time. That doesn't mean that walking out of that cage is something that's easy. Not everybody is going to have that miracle moment of, and now I do not struggle with any of the things that have held me captive for so long. That is not everybody's story. That's not most people's story. It's definitely not my story. And so I don't want there to be this idea of like, if you are finding freedom because God has given you that freedom and because you have put in work to partner with God and take ownership of that freedom, I don't want there to be discouragement if it's difficult. And I don't want there to be discouragement if there is backsliding. And I don't want there to be discouragement if it's a like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like climbing across the finish line type of thing. Because that is unfortunately the way that most journeys to recovery operate. And this is a journey to recovery. It's a recovery from being in bondage. It's a recovery from being having your spirit broken. To rebuild a spirit is something that does take time.
Yeah. There's also a possibility, like the one story I showed where the cage was already open because he outgrew it. There might have been a time where he was in it because he hadn't outgrown it, you know, which means him getting more free would have required some more inner healing before the simplicity of you're already free came about. So we don't, I remember when I was younger, somebody got up on a stage once and was like, I used to be addicted to pornography all the time, and I looked at it all the time, and I couldn't stop. And then I went to church one day, and someone prayed for me, and it never happened again. I was like, screw you, man. You know, like, you know how many times we've all prayed for these kinds of things to go away? I do understand, like, when we're saying it's that simple is sometimes super unhelpful. And it may not for everyone be quite so simple. But because I've seen it with 3 different people, the same exact expression, you're already free. Like, I feel like if I start there, my mind might renew in a different direction than the shame one that's just like, I am never getting out. And I have a bajillion proofs as to why that is. Like our last episode was all about. Like, when we ground ourselves in the untruth, we create rotten fruit. But when we ground ourselves in what Jesus is saying, which even if he's not for some reason telling you you're already free, he is telling you, I'm going to get you free.
Yes.
If you ground yourself in that, the fruit's going to start to shift. So, yeah.
Which maybe even if that is the takeaway from this whole episode, like just that kind of the simplicity of that idea of like repeat that to yourself. Like that is the thing to hold on to and remember. If you are like in the trenches of addiction or bondage or any this, that, or the other things that you are trying to be free from, just like repeating to yourself like, Jesus has freed me from this, or Jesus will free me from this. Like, I love the point that you were making earlier. Like, we believe that God can do all things. Do you believe that God can also do this? Can God also free you from this? Because if you believe that God can do all things and that God can redeem any situation and that God can heal any situation except for yours, you're the one exception to the rule. Like, it sounds a little silly when you say it out loud. So just holding on to that and like letting that be the truth, even if it doesn't feel true and all of the like lies that are being lived into feel more tangible, the more that you can replace those with just this idea of like, God's gonna get me out of here. Like, God can get me out of here. God may have already given me my freedom, and this is just something that I have to live into.
Yeah, and demons have a shared like group of lies that they're always going to toss at people. It's just like ones that they know very well work on people. And one of them is what Amity just said, the you're the only one. Like that is a classic. We all learned this lie in hell. This was like hell 101. You know, like when we go up there, use that one first. Whereas like I will say like on the other side of freedom from pornography, anytime I have a young person come up to me, it's like, I'm just really struggling with something that I want to get out of, and I just don't know what to do. Like, I always just want to look them in the eyes and be like, it's porn, right? You know, like, it's so many
appreciate
people,
that.
male or female, and they
Yes.
always feel like they can't talk about it, and that's why they're stuck there, because they're the only one who's blankety blank in this kind of way. And I just always want to just be like, hey, I already know you're talking about porn. You want to be more specific, you know? So like that's helpful for some people. I usually don't go that straight. I usually just look at them and be like, well, back when I used to struggle with porn, so I can give them a wink, like you're safe to talk if you want to talk. That'll kind of help people start to find the space. Whereas all the I'm just in a real crisis and a storm right now, and just dealing with addiction. I the other thing you can do is like, oh yeah, hard drugs, heroin. What are we talking about? Because we should take you somewhere. Oh well, not that kind of addiction. Oh. Well, gee, what other ones could there be? Is it food? No? Okay. We're narrowing it down. We have a list. We know where we're headed here. So, anyways, if you're dealing with it, there are lots of ways to find freedom, and there are lots of things that can help you with it. Feel free to leave comments, and we can send you links in different directions that might be helpful to your particular case. But if you're looking for spiritual advice on how to get free, be it porn or something else, you don't have to necessarily think it's as easy as I'm already free. But you do need to turn your compass to the direction that Jesus is going to free you.
Yes.
And if you have it focused on it's impossible, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You will find yourself living into this idea in tangible ways that it is impossible. And that is not the truth of any addiction, because Jesus ultimately is higher than that, even if it's a long struggle to get out. So, there we go.
And you should open up Spotify and you should look up a song that is 45 minutes long, and it's called Oh Little One, and Jamin wrote it spontaneously on the spot at a worship night that we had in the spare room, and it's 45 minutes of the most beautiful, impactful truth on this specific topic, and I listened to it once or twice a day, every single day since the 6 months ago when he released it. So if you just want to be powerfully spoken over in a beautiful way regarding to the freedom of Christ, free plug for Jamin.
I feel
Go
bad.
listen to that
I don't
song.
even remember how the song
Don't say
goes.
that after I told you. It's one of the most I remember how the song goes. I could sing you all 45 minutes of it verbatim right here. I listen to it every day. Don't say that you don't remember writing it when it's one of the most important
I of all
pieces of
people
music
should
in my
talk
life.
about remembering writing things. Mrs. I tranced out for a moment. Sorry.
Okay, we weren't talking about that. We were talking about the song. Oh, Little One. On Spotify, I assume it's on Apple Music or anywhere you get music as well.
Yeah, I just haven't listened to it since I put it up there, probably.
Listen to that. Well, that's okay. I have.
Thank you for the fractions of pennies. I appreciate it.
Yay.
Okay.
Anyway, this has been another episode. That was last week's bit.
Sorry. I was cheering you on this time.
That was last week's bit.
I was cheering you on.
No, you were.
Not doing ambulances.
You're being facetious. This has been another episode of The Exorcist Bestiary. Tune in next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Love you, besties.
J-Man. Generation, you wouldn't understand.
What?
My generation invented cyberbullying.
My generation is way better at
Perfected
cyberbullying. My generation cyberbullies your generation constantly.
My generation didn't have the internet for a while.